Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. We have someone who I personally admire, given that he's from the Tahs, my club team. And it's the first podcast that we've recorded in 3 continents across the globe. Tap and Go's going international and global now. Welcome, Alex Newsome.
Thanks, boys. Glad to be on. Thanks for having me.
Oh, sure. So how's the preseason going at the moment? You're in the midst of it all.
Yeah, we're getting towards the end of it, which is always a good time of year. It's not much fun, the preseason. Always that time where you do the toughest training. You got no games to look forward to on the weekend, so it becomes a bit of a grind at times. But we're our first trial game this Friday night, so we're getting close to the season, which is exciting.
Yeah, wonderful. So we'll touch on that later as well, but I want to take it right back to sort of like where it all began. And I want to sort of ask, so you're known as being a country boy. How was that like growing up and playing rugby?
Yep. So born and raised in a little country town called Glen Ennis, which is in the northern part of New South Wales, not far from the Queensland border. I grew up on a cattle farm, and there was actually no rugby union team in my local town. So I played rugby league as like when I was in primary school, and then I got sent away to boarding school in Sydney, St. Joseph's College, and then they only played rugby union, so it was all rugby from there. So I haven't left Sydney since, and really enjoy my rugby as a result.
Was your high school sort of the thing that influenced you to play rugby professionally, or was it sort of like before that, was it sort of a family or?
Yeah, I come from a rugby family for sure. My dad and my uncles have all played. They went to Joey's as well, which is a call it a bit of a rugby nursery. It's produced the likes of Kurtley Beale, Ned Hannigans, Tom Robertson went there. If you look back, guys like Matt Burke, a lot of successful players that come out of there. So it's certainly a big deal, rugby at school. But I guess for me, leaving Joey's, I was never sort of expecting to go professional. I suppose it was more so through enjoying my rugby at Eastern Suburbs, which is my club rugby team in Sydney, that I really started to progress my game and make a few teams.
Yeah, sure. And then so after you left Joey's, you went to the Western Force. So you went to the other side of Australia, and it was an interesting time so it was in 2017 where it was the Western Force's last season, wasn't it? And so what was it like sort of having your experience of your first professional contract in a team that was sort of coming to an end? Like, I know the media got told at the end of the season that it was the Western Force getting cut, but were you guys aware of it?
Yeah, we were certainly aware of it. It was a funny year for me. Obviously, being my first year professional, I was so excited to be there, and I was just trying to make every post a winner, try and make the team, try and play well. And I guess the external noise didn't really weigh on me too much compared to, I guess, some of the older guys who might have had families and kids to worry about. So yeah, that's sort of the way I looked at it. There was our coach and CEO were, super positive, sort of kept assuring us there was nothing to be worried about, which in the end was, probably the opposite. So yeah, I guess in summary for me, it was I was just trying to play good footy and enjoy making my way in Super Rugby, and in the end, it sort of worked out well for me, ending up back in my home state playing for the Waratahs.
Mm. And when you're part of the Western Force, so you look at the players who are there and you look at where they are now, and there's sort of heaps of wallabies, and sort of back then, I guess they were less experienced and a bit more raw. And I remember watching, and sort of you get this sort of feeling of like this underdog spirit and sort of fighting to punch above your weight. Was this something that was focused on at the club?
Yeah, I guess that was certainly the feeling at the club. WA is such a cool state, and cool, like a great rugby state. People don't realise the amount of support that's over in the West for rugby. There's a lot of Kiwi and South African expats living in Perth as well. So a lot of rugby people that are, really get behind the Force and some of the best crowds I played in front of was over there in Perth. So I guess with all that external noise happening as well, everyone sort of bound together and were really motivated to do well. I mean, it wasn't like we had an outstanding season, but compared to a lot of the other Australian teams that year, we did quite well. So, a lot of fond memories from that year.
Mm. And then, so you joined the Tahs in 2018. What was the transition like from going from a team that was sort of, I guess, had the less experienced players to a team that had probably a stacked backline when you look back on it?
Yeah, I guess it was pretty seamless for me. I'd come through the Waratahs Academy with all the under 20 stuff and knew a lot of the younger boys. I was certainly keen to play with a lot of the experience that we had, especially in the back line. I mean, if you look back at that 2018 team back line that we had, we ended up making the semi-final and lost to the Lions over in Joburg after being up 14-0, which was very disappointing. But, you had Phipps Foley in the halves, then you had Kirtley and Curtis Rona in centres, and then Israel at fullback with myself and Tungeli on the wing. So it's pretty cool backline to be a part of.
Yeah. Was there a certain individuals that sort of got you under the wing and sort of mentored you almost?
They were all pretty good. I found Bernard Foley to be, a great help. He's such a good fella and such a likable sort of larrikin amongst the squad. So he was really good. He's got time for everyone, and being one of the younger guys in the team, especially in the back line, he went out of his way to look after me on and off the pitch, which is good fun.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess when you look at the squad of the Waratahs now and this year, and I guess last year, and you compare it to 2017-18, so I guess the likes of, well, actually all of them that you just mentioned have moved on. The halves combinations now, Jake Gordon and Will Harrison. What's the sort of like atmosphere in the team and sort of vibe like these days? Like, what's the main differences?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of turnover. A lot of the experienced guys have moved on. I think that was sort of to be expected with the age of those guys. After the 2019 World Cup, there's not normally a lot of turnover after World Cups. So, it is a little bit different. But I tell you what it's bringing at the moment is there's a lot of young guys who are talented young players who are training really hard to try and cement their spot in the team. Sometimes you get older guys who might come back from Wallaby duty really late and only do preseason for a couple of weeks and then roll into the season. That's not the case this year. We've got a lot of, really talented young guys. They've come through that under 20s team, and there's a lot of energy around training, which is great.
Yeah, sure. Well, I want to touch on one sort of player who's, I guess, stayed constant even from that 2014 winning season. Well, I guess he's not here this year, but Michael Hooper. So obviously that's someone who I obviously admire. And when it comes to especially Wallabies captaincy, he gets a bit of sort of critique on it, which I think is completely sort of unfair. What does sort of Hooper bring to a team?
Mate, Hoops is just one of those ultimate competitors. He's not necessarily the most skillful guy on the park, but he works the hardest, and he's just so tireless in everything that he does. He leads from the front, so with his captaincy, he's the best player on the park every week, just about. So he's always leading with actions. The other thing that he's a really good motivator for the team. Something that I don't necessarily think is super important in captaincy is the ability to talk with your words. I feel more actions is important, but he's just so good at both of them that everyone really wants to get behind and play with him. So, yeah, we're going to miss him this year for sure. He's one of the best players in the world. But yeah, he's a special player.
Going from the likes of Hoops, and then you talk about the youngsters who are coming in. Do you ever find? So we've talked to lots of people, and they found that the youngsters bring like a new flair, a new like enjoyment and passion for the game. Have you found that with all the new boys coming in?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was trying to allude to. The previous question, you got young guys like Will Harrison and these other guys who might have had a taste of Super Rugby, and they're just wanting to get better. And young guys sort of bring that passion, and they don't have, necessarily like some baggage that have been like overcoached and conservative, if you like, at times. A lot of young guys are just happy to play what they see and just play a really exciting attacking brand of footy, which is good to be a part of.
You talk about overcoaching there. Is that something which has happened in the past and you've seen as like a consistent value which can come?
I think at times, it's up to the individual at times. Some individuals might listen to everything a coach says and just might want to stick to exactly to a structure where, you look at other guys like Curly Bill's a wonderful example of it. He's just such a great heads-up player that no matter what the coach says, will still react to what the defence is doing. So, I think at times people get a bit conservative and worry about structures and things. But I think it's great to see some young guys who haven't even been exposed to that just play their natural game.
And I guess you mentioned that these young guys have all sort of come from that under-20 season that was super successful last year. Do you notice that these players have gelled sort of a bit more, and do you sort of see it within training and matches?
Sorry, boys. Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, guys, it's that time again. Time to pay for the pints.
Today's podcast has been brought to you by our mates over at Team Blazers. A big shout out to them, the great British Blaze company, kidding you out for every match day social. Check them out now.
We got a good group of them at the Tahs, and Jason Gilmore, who's our defensive coach, he was the head coach of that 20s team. So not only have we got a really good nucleus to those players, we've got Gilly, who's on our coaching staff and knows them really well. So there's just a good little group there that have played together quite a lot. And that synergy is coming through in training from what I'm seeing. It's a bit similar to, if you look at the Queensland Reds team, they've got a similar thing that might be a couple of years older with, those guys in the back row and in their early 20s that are starting to play good footy now. So hopefully that comes to fruition for us in the near future.
Who do you think's sort of the young player to watch this year? Like, who's got the ability to really come in to take the lead and sort of bring it to his own?
I think Will Harrison is one to watch again. He made that Wallaby squad and didn't get a game. But I think the benefit he'll have from being around that squad and learning every day and being under some new coaches will really benefit him. And, you look at a guy like Lolesio, who they gave a game against the All Blacks and, the team didn't perform really well. Will Harrison hasn't been exposed to, I guess, that disappointment. So I'm really excited to see him play this year.
Are there any aspects of his game that you think just particularly make him such a standout player?
I think he's just a really heads-up player. I've seen other fly halves that maybe have a better pass than him or a better kick than him. But his ability to, when he sees a gap in front of him, he's happy to flatten up and take the line on. And he's got that speed, a bit like Bowden Barry, like he's got that speed that can get himself out of trouble or make a line break himself that a lot of other 10s don't have. So I think his speed and ability to take the line on is quite unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we sort of finish up and talk about sort of the upcoming season, I want to quickly ask about sort of, obviously due to COVID, one thing that happened last year was that we had a Super Rugby AU. They introduced the Western Force and they had the 5 Australian teams. What was that set up like as an Australian player?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think as an Aussie player, you're playing local derbies every week, so it's pretty exciting. And from a Wallabies point of view, everyone's competing for positions. So each week you're playing against someone else who, is trying to go for the same to make the team just as you are. So I think it's good for the fans. They know every player on the field, and for players, you're motivated to do well as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess you, and the first question, you touched on the preseason game coming up. What should we sort of expect from the Waratahs in this coming season? Sort of, what should we look forward to seeing?
we've talked a lot about playing fast and being able to move the ball to space quickly. I think if you look at our squad, we've got a quite skillful squad and a fit team. So we want to be able to use that in the way we play. So, we want to have that typical attacking brand that the Waratahs are known for, and really be able to get the ball to space when it presents. So that's one thing that we've been training and looking forward to putting into practice.
Absolutely.
Obviously, last year you were given the honour of being vice captain of the Tahs. What was that like? Well, that's obviously a huge honour for you.
Yeah, it was a massive honour. It was a funny one going from, at the start of 2019, I was one of the youngest. I think I was the youngest member in the back line. And then when Carmichael was injured and Jake was injured, and then fast forward 12 months, I was, one of the oldest. So, it was a massive honour. Obviously, a funny one having Hoops there who stood down from the captaincy, was such a, legend of the game now. It was great to have ideas to bounce off and Simo as well, who was leading from the front. So, really excited to progress into this year with a new group and continue to try and lead from example.
You talk about Hoops there. Were there any pearls of wisdom he gave you which you cared to share? Which, like, any captain out there you think are just crucial things to be knowing, to aim and achieve?
I think a good thing is, like he said, things are never as good as they seem, and they're never as bad as they seem either. So, you might win a few games, think you're on top of the world, but that's not the case, and it's certainly not when you lose a few as well. So, things happen so quickly in sport. So I think it's just important to stay sort of, level-headed and not get too carried away with success or disappointment.
Was that sort of a similar? So what did you try and, like, as a vice captain, what do you try and tell to the younger guys? Was it a similar message to that, or was there something that you particularly brought?
I think you just got to try and do your job as best you can. Like, when you get to this level of footy, everyone has such good players. If everyone just does their job really well, then the team is going to be successful. So it's just a matter of, like, no matter whether I've got a VC next to my name or not, I just got to perform well firstly. So that's sort of my main message to guys, is to just worry about you performing well, and your actions will then speak to the rest of the team.
Awesome. Well, one question that we ask all our guests at the end is their favorite moment in their career. So what would yours be at this point?
Favorite moment in my career? I mean, that semi-final was up there against the Lions, but I guess my debut, I came on first game in 2017. I was picked on the bench and then didn't get on against the Tahs in Sydney. And then the next game was against the Reds over in Perth. We had a yellow card. I came on with like 3 minutes to go at Flanker and made my first tackle on George Smith off a line out. So I think not a bad player to make your first tackle on. So that's probably up there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You've got the upcoming season. Are there any big aims for the season? Like anything you haven't done before, which you're looking towards?
Yeah, I guess, I'm really, really craving some team success at the Waratahs. We've got this Super Rugby AU to start the season off, which is a great opportunity. There's only 5 teams in the comp and someone's got to win it. So I guess it's got to be us, and I'm really excited with this young crew that a lot of people aren't giving us much of a chance. So, I'm really excited to start this season really well. It's only an 8-round season. So I really want team success. And of course, I want to make the Wallabies, as every Australia player does. So yeah, that's probably two big goals for me.
We wish you the best of luck with both of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
I can't wait to watch the Waratahs play at something like 1 a.m., 3 a.m. here in America, but should be awesome nonetheless. Well, thank you, Alex, for jumping on the pod and talking about also the insights from past in the Waratahs and now present, because it's obviously such a dynamic and changing team, but that was awesome. Cheers.
No worries, boys. Thanks for having me on. It's always great to chat with Warrior Tahs and rugby fans from around the globe. So all the best with the podcast.
Awesome.
thanks.
Cheers.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
break.
Cheers, boys.